Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing.
Good afternoon.
This week, the Chief Secretary, Orville London, addresses the media.
I must say that although I'll be extending Christmas greetings to all of you, I'm really in a rather somber mood because I have just been informed by the Assistant Commissioner of Police, ACP Headley, incidentally on his penultimate day in office in Tobago, and I'll say a little bit more on that, that there has been a murder and that a gentleman has in fact been killed in a robbery at somewhere around the Works Division compound. This, of course, anytime we have an incident like this in Tobago, it does traumatize all of us. And it brings us to the stark realization that crime is real in Tobago, and it is something that we have to treat with. It's not a reason for us to panic, but it is definitely a reason for us to become much more aware of the changing environment in Tobago and to respond to this at various levels. We first have to respond at a personal level and recognize that in a changing environment, we have a responsibility to change our modus operandi. And therefore, I'm urging all Tobagonians and during this Christmas period, in fact, during the entire period going forward, that we have to be much more vigilant, much more careful in the way in which we treat with our environment, our surroundings, our movements, because the Tobago world is in fact changing. It has in fact changed. I want to extend my sincerest condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Edwards, a gentleman whom I know very well. In fact, I think he's from my hometown or my home village, and I empathize with the family, which must be traumatized when at this time of goodwill, when people are looking forward to Christmas and the celebrations, that you now have to look forward to a funeral and a period of grief and mourning. And I join in condemning the actions of these bandits who, for whatever reason, and from wherever they are, and one has to understand that we do have homegrown criminals in Tobago, and we have to treat with that. But I just want to indicate that we in Tobago, and I say this all the time, have got to send the signal that this is not an environment in which criminals can feel secure and can feel safe. Nor can Tobago be seen as a soft target. And that is one of the reasons why I want to reiterate that we must take control of our environment, and we must ensure that we are much more careful about the way in which we do business in Tobago. And while we're on the subject of the ACP, as I indicated, this is his penultimate day in office. He proceeds on pre-retirement leave on Friday. In fact, his replacement, ACP Reyes, I'll be meeting with them. I think he comes to Tobago later today, and I'll be meeting with him and ACP Headley tomorrow. And of course, he will be introducing himself to the Tobago public and the Tobago scenario. It's a rather unnerving welcome for him, but I know that he worked here already as a superintendent, so he's not unaware of the Tobago environment. It might have been a little bit different when he was a superintendent here. I want to extend Tobago welcome to him, and I wish to indicate to him that ACP Headley has laid a significant platform, and I hope that he'll be able to carry on the work which ACP Headley would have continued from those assistant commissioners of police who came before. ACP Headley will be remembered for the work he did with respect to the Tobago-oriented policing, and of course the tourism-oriented policing, and the development of a Tobago operational plan, which I don't think that it has been implemented to the level with which we are comfortable. And in fact, I heard ACP Headley himself express some concerns about the implementation of the tourism-oriented policing plan. And I'm hoping that under ACP REARS, the human resource challenges and other issues which would have stymied the implementation of the tourism-oriented program, those issues will be alleviated under his watch. So I want to say a very, very heartfelt thank you to ACP Headley, whom I think fitted into the Tobago environment at all levels in an admirable way and did in fact make a significant difference. He's leaving a number of unresolved crimes, and I'm hoping that the work that he would have done along with his team and the team from Trinidad, that we'll be able to apprehend the criminals involved in the most recent incidents of murders in Tobago. Earlier today, the chief administrator was supposed to have attended a meeting in Trinidad with the other permanent secretaries and the Minister of Finance, most likely to discuss the present situation. That meeting has been either cancelled or postponed. But we in the Tobago House of Assembly and we in Tobago must recognize that the financial crisis, or maybe the financial issues facing the country at this point in time, will in fact impact on Tobago sooner rather than later. And therefore we have got to be prepared, and we got to prepare at various levels. We got to prepare at the level of the Assembly, we got to prepare at the level of the sectors and the institutions, and we got to prepare at the level of the people. We have started our discussions. In fact, at today's meeting, one of the things we discussed would be those priority areas on which we will be focusing regardless of the state of the finances. And of course, among them would be the preservation or the protection of the most vulnerable in the society, protection of jobs as far as possible, and of course, focus on some of the major projects and or human capital development programs and policies. These are some of the areas on which we're going to be focusing, and we're going to be going into a little bit more detail on that at a meeting which I have carded for the 8th of January, when all secretaries, assistant secretaries, administrators, and accounts and finance personnel from within the Assembly will meet at the Tobago Hospitality Institute to discuss the state of affairs in the country and, of course, what is the impact on Tobago and how should we as Tobagonians respond. So I agree with the analysts that this is not necessarily a time for us to panic, but it is a time for us to start planning, and planning differently and planning more professionally as we face what is coming down the pipeline. Over the last couple of weeks, I would have sent and received a number of letters, and I want to share some of these pieces of correspondence with you. I would have written to the Prime Minister simply asking her or reminding her of a commitment to me and the people of Tobago, and to ask her for an update. And a very simple letter. I have copies here, so I'll share them with you. where in my letter, this was dated 11th of December, I referred to a meeting in Tobago on Thursday, November the 13th, and your commitment to apprise me on 1, your Cabinet's response to my recommendation for the convening of a meeting between the central government and a joint team representing the Tobago House of Assembly and the Forum of Political Parties to discuss the issue of self-government for Tobago. And 2, your response to my correspondence outlining instances of incursion by the Ministry of Tobago Development in areas under the legal jurisdiction of Tobago House of Assembly. Madam Prime Minister, I'm requesting an update on these 2 issues whose resolution is fundamental to the promotion and maintenance of harmony between the central government and the Tobago House of Assembly. All I'm doing there is that reminding the Prime Minister of a commitment, because bearing in mind that the commitment, the first commitment, is one that was made since our meeting in Trinidad a couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, and then that commitment was repeated when she came to Tobago. That is a commitment to have the Cabinet make a decision as to my recommendation that a team from the central government should meet with a team from the Tobago House of Assembly to discuss the issue of self-government for Tobago, and let us have a joint approach to the whole process. So I am hoping, and in fact I'm expecting, to get a response from her very soon. She has repeated, I should say, or reconfirmed her commitment to meet with me in Tobago in January, and I'm hoping that by when we do meet in January, that I'll have a firm decision from her on this particular matter. I also wrote to the Minister for Tobago Development, Dr. Delmond Baker, and I need to give you the background to this so that you'll understand the reason for the correspondence. I received a letter from the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce asking for an update on the designation of Crown Point as a designated development area. Now let me explain what a designated development area is. As you know, throughout Tobago, we have the licensing arrangement where persons wishing to buy land or wishing to do any form of development have to have a licensing process. Now, the main reason behind this was to prevent speculation, but it was not meant to discourage investment. And therefore, in order to balance that, in order to ensure that you did not encourage speculation, but you encourage investment, we decided that we should designate certain areas in Tobago that are suited for investment as designated development areas. In these areas, the whole process would be much easier. In fact, it would be meant to facilitate investment. One such area would obviously be the Crown Point area, where there's so many opportunities for investment. And we would have made a recommendation to the Ministry of Finance that this area should be designated as a designated development area. And we found that this whole issue was dragging on for a very long time. So I asked the Chief Administrator to inquire from the Ministry what was causing the delay. And the correspondence that I had from him said simply, at a meeting held in October with the Economic Management Division of the Ministry of Economy, treating with the above caption, that is the designated development area Crown Point, I was informed that a cabinet note was prepared and submitted based on a recommendation from the Neil Wilson report. It was reported that the above-mentioned cabinet note has been referred to the Finance and General Purpose Committee, of which the comments of the Minister of Tobago Development has been sought. And therefore, what I inferred from this is that based on our recommendation to the Minister, a note would have been prepared for the designation of Crown Point as a designated development area. that note would have gone to what they call the FNGP, the Finance and General Purposes Committee, where they would have been supposedly focused on ensuring that, all the legal and other issues are worked out. They would have sent it to the Minister of Tobago Development for his comments. And what I could infer from the note is that they have not yet received those comments, and this has created a problem. Obviously, the Chamber of Commerce is concerned, and therefore I would have written to the Minister of Tobago Development saying the following. I forward for your information the attached correspondence from the Secretary of the Tobago Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce and the Chief Administrator of the Tobago House of Assembly. The correspondence from the Chief Administrator indicates that the relevant Cabinet note on the designation of the Crown Point area as a designated development area was prepared and submitted. It further indicates that the Cabinet note has been referred to the Finance and General Purposes Committee, of which the comments of the Minister of Tobago Development has been sought. And then I indicate to him, I wish to advise that the delay in the designation of Crown Point as a designated development area is frustrating and even dissuading potential investors at this critical juncture in the development of the tourism sector. In the circumstances, I'm requesting that you make every effort to ensure that there is no obstacle to a speedy resolution of this critical issue. This letter would have gone to him on the 11th of December. I have not yet received any response. But I just want to reiterate that this is important. All of us know the need for high-end hotel rooms in Tobago, and as was said in the note from the Chamber of Commerce, as you're aware, a number of developers have shown interest in pursuing tourism development opportunities in the area and are now anxiously awaiting the approval of the DDA by the Minister of Finance and the Economy. I just want to indicate that I've also received a letter from the Secretary of Education, and this is very important to the sporting population in Tobago. Because, sometimes if you don't make people aware of these things early, when the challenge becomes, insurmountable, you sometimes get blamed unnecessarily. And the Secretary will have written to me indicating that the Assembly would have spent approximately $14 million on the installation of a new track at the Dwight York Stadium. And in undertaking these works, the agreement was that the sports company will do an overall assessment of the Dwight York Stadium, as well as renovations to the field and the structure itself. To date, while the assessment has been completed, the repair works have not begun, and the Occupational Safety and Health Authority, OSHA, has now closed the stadium for a number of violations. Further to that, since 2012, athletics have not been able to utilize the Dwight York Stadium, and we in the division are very concerned that we may encounter a similar challenge for 2015 if the sport company does not urgently effect repairs. I'm therefore seeking your urgent intervention in this matter. What I intend to do is to speak to the Minister at one level and to see what can be done, one, from a short-term perspective, and two, from a medium-term perspective, to alleviate and finally resolve the issue. Recognizing the need on the part of Tobagonians for a high-level athletic track and the reluctance of the sport company to put out the funding, the Tobago House of Assembly decided to take out that responsibility. And that is why the Secretary referred to the $14 million spent. We're now in the very, very embarrassing position because The arrangement was, while we do the track for the $14 million, while we are doing that, the sport company will treat with the stadium. So when the track is finished, we now have a usable facility. We now in a situation where we have kept our side of the bargain. We have a spanking new world-class $14 million athletic track, which we cannot use because OSHA is saying that we cannot use the facility. And that is something that requires urgent attention. The athletic season starts in January. I think primary school athletics starts in by mid-January. And therefore, we could end up with a situation where we have to maybe take children down to Mount Pleasant or some grass track somewhere while we have this $14 million track there. So I'll be trying to contact the Minister of Sport within the next 24 hours to get from him what the take is. In the meantime, we're looking at some other options which have been put to us. And I also got another letter from the Secretary which spoke to the construction of the new Scarborough Roman Catholic School. And as I said, it is necessary that Tobago gets an idea as to where we are. Constructing the new Scarborough Roman Catholic School. And it reads, the Assembly would have committed to the construction of a new school approximately 10 years ago. Unfortunately, over the years, the Assembly has never received sufficient funds in its annual appropriation to begin this project. After recent discussion with the Catholic Board of Management, they have agreed to accept our projected commitment of $45 million for the construction of the new school. Unfortunately, for fiscal 2014-15, the Assembly has received only $2 million, which is well below what is required for works to be undertaken this year. As a result, I'm requesting an urgent intervention in obtaining off-budget funding from the Ministry of Finance for construction of the new school. In other words, here we have a situation where all of us know that there's a dire need for the construction of a new Scarborough Roman Catholic School. But you can't do it with $2 million. And you can't start a project if you don't have the funding to complete it. So what we want is a discussion with the ministry to see whether there is any way by which the funding can be provided, whether it's off-budget funding, whether it is linking with us for a PPP arrangement. But the construction of that school is a priority, and it is something that we're going to pursue. So I just want people to understand that and to recognize that the non-construction of the Scarborough Roman Catholic Primary School is not because of the insensitivity of the Tobago House of Assembly, but rather because the funding cannot be sourced. A predictable flow of funding, let me put it like that, cannot be guaranteed so that we can start the project. And we obviously don't want to start the project and it cannot be completed. And I want to just maybe end with an issue that is in the public domain. And I think anybody who knows how I've operated would realize that what I try to do is to deal with issues up front. There's an issue in the public domain with respect to a letter from the Auditor General with respect to proposed gratuity payment to Mr. René Damas, former coordinator, Strategic Oversight Unit, Tobago House of Assembly. And in that letter, there is a perception that the Executive Council would have done something that is illegal. What I want to say is that yesterday I met with the Senior State Counsel and the Chief Administrator, among others, and the consensus was that what the Executive Council had done was not illegal. And let me explain the rationale. And I think I need for you to understand the circumstances that will have led to this. Because we didn't do something because we were being reckless. We did something because we felt it was the best thing to do under the circumstances. Mr. Damas was employed as a coordinator with the Strategic Oversight Committee of the Tobago House of Assembly. he got involved in an incident which led to his arrest and his being charged for an offense. Now, when we discussed with the legal people, they indicated to us that when somebody is on contract, even if that person were to be charged, one could not terminate them. In fact, I remember we had a similar situation when early in my early time here, and we would have terminated an employee, and we were taken to the industrial court and had to pay a significant sum of money. Discussions were held with Mr. Dumas, who agreed to leave on condition that his terminal benefits will be preserved. That is all. So that he worked for 10 months, I think it was. Because basically, based on the advice that we have, if you want somebody to leave and they don't want to leave, you have to negotiate with them. And they could ask for anything. At the most, they could ask for that you buy out the entire contract, which of course you're not going to do. They could ask for 3 months, they could ask for 6 months, whatever. What Mr. Dumas would have agreed upon is his gratuity. Gratuity is something to which you entitled, well, not entitled, but it's something that you earn, providing that you work as a contract officer satisfactorily for a period. He had not reached 12 months. And there is a guideline, notice I said, a guideline which says that if you have not served for a year, you are not entitled. The Executive Council felt that in the special circumstances, it would be to the advantage of the Assembly if you brought closure to the matter by paying the gratuity. What is the gratuity? The gratuity is 20% of the monies that you would have earned. So instead of having to pay maybe at the worst case scenario 2 years of full salary, or maybe 3 months or 6 months of full salary, the decision was made by the Executive Council in agreement with the officer that you pay 20% of 10 months of salary. That is all. So that yes, there is a guideline, but the Executive Council in special circumstances, the legal authority has the authority to waive the guideline in order to resolve the issue. Let me give you an example. There's a guideline that says, for example, that if you are not permanently employed, you are not entitled to gratuity and pension as a public servant. But over the years, Cabinet would have said, listen, somebody has been acting in a position for 15 years. They have never been appointed. It is unfair to the person to go home, and therefore Cabinet takes a decision to waive the guidelines because of these special circumstances. And that was the situation. I think a lot of it has to do with the name. It doesn't have to do with the name or the individual, because there are precedents where the Tobago House of Assembly would have given concessions to individuals in various circumstances which we consider special. People have gone up for election and they recognize that they couldn't complete the contract. It goes to the Executive Council. The Executive Council would say, okay, you were to do 3 years. You only did 15 months, you only did 18 months, and so on. So I just want you to understand that what we're going to be doing now, because we don't want to do anything that is illegal, we have already got an opinion from the Senior State Council. We are going to get an opinion from Senior Council and, of course, take the issue at that level. Because, as I said, we acted in good faith because we felt that in those special circumstances, that would be the fairest thing to do. And, in fact, it would be something that would benefit the Tobago House of Assembly because the other options were likely to be more expensive.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending December 20th, 2014.